usual is that which happens to us day after day. And sometimes our way of handling that is we would like to make it a dream. We would like to make believe that it isn't happening. We would like to believe that somehow we can just close our eyes and it'll make it different. And instead, we continue to close our eyes and it isn't any different. We find that this remorse-filled situations that we find irreversible offer no hope in finding a different solution as we look within ourselves. Wow, this is an uplifting sermon, isn't it? Head sheep, blind following, inability to alter the things around us by our own wills. I'm not done. Let me give you more. Pastor told a story of a young couple, bright young couple, kind of the model young couple. This is the couple, you know, that they hold up in front of the youth group and say, now, you need to be like them. They were both med students, both finishing up their education, both in school together, still years away from completion. The marriage was wonderful. It drew all of the congregation and all of their friends, and there were hundreds of people that attended. And the pastor said he's never felt such a sense of both pride and just a bright future as he united this young couple. He said it was only a few months into the marriage when they discovered that they were pregnant. Now, they both had years of school left to go, and they knew that this was one of those unplanned interruptions. It would have been next to impossible, at least for her, to continue on in med school while pregnant and then with a child. It weighed upon the couple. They said they brought it constantly in prayer. This couple that was so outspoken about the rights of children, about never returning to abortion. And then finally, he said he got this phone call. The pastor got this phone call. It was the middle of the night, and the voice on the other end, he recognizes this young man, and he says, I think I've killed her. I think I've killed her. Pastor, you need to come right away. So he got dressed, made his way over to their apartment. There he found lying on the bed this lifeless body of this beautiful bride. This young man sitting on the floor in kind of a pool of despair, not knowing what to do. It took him a while, and then he finally was able to question them and say, what happened? What happened to all of this bright promise? And that's when all of this story came out. Problem they saw with the pregnancy and the timing and the interruption of their lives and how God had somehow turned them away from what they had intended to do. And out of all of that, they debated on what they should do. And finally, this couple who had always been the ones to stand up for the rights of the unborn and for children, one of them uttered the words that neither of them wanted to hear. We need to get an abortion, but we can't let the church know about it. We can't change. We need to hide this. Being both medical students, she insisted that this be the way, but that he had access to all of the equipment. And so he was instructed to bring home the right equipment to perform the abortion at home. Well, the rest was history. Their conviction conflicted with their ambition. And in this private decision that they made, one that they hoped they never would have to, one that would betray them to the public, they let one another down. In this nightmare of events, Powers of institutions seemed powerless to them. There were no unifying solutions that they could find. Their religious beliefs collided and came at cross purposes to their career goals. Church and state met with equal dismay and sorrow. Private solutions sought escape from public castigation. Technology goaded them into a high-risk decision. And here, expediency compromised wisdom. Human sovereignty was crushed at human hands. In short, the confrontation between their religious beliefs and a preferred lifestyle left a bloody trail. Now, these are only the tip of the iceberg, aren't they? We can probably read the paper or magazines. We can talk to one another. We can find countless examples of where our convictions collide and come cross purposes with our desires and our goals. Ravi goes on to say, there's only one thing that's certain in this world, in this secular world, that our range of choices in life will be on the rise. We'll continue to have more and more choices. And what he means by that, those things that we thought were unthinkable a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 50 years ago, will become more and more. They'll become choices that we can turn to, but they lead to us no better solution than the ones that came before them. They are all but an alluring, gluttonous, diminishing way of looking to move us toward our own satisfactions. One more story. And this came from a man who gave a description of a heart attack at age 30. Now, what complicated this, or I guess what makes it interesting, is the man was a doctor. And he describes this heart attack unlike any pain that he had ever known. He said he had broken his arm, he had broken a foot before, he had cut himself, he had all kinds of scrapes that all of us go through in life. And he said, while all of those seemed to be on the outside, he said, in the heart attack, the pain was something that he was within. It wasn't something outside happening to him. He was in the midst of the pain. He said there was no other way to describe it. The notion conveyed is instructive, that the very organ that was supposed to be pumping life was instead disseminating pain. That's a powerful statement. One of the things that it does is it causes us to begin to look, where are we going to find our solutions? There's an old Chinese proverb that says, if you want to understand water, don't ask the fish. Why? Because the fish lives in the only environment that he knows. So if you want to understand what water is all about, don't ask the fish, because they don't know any other. There's no comparative. I remember George Barna using kind of a similar type of illustration of the frog in the kettle. Probably you've heard this analogy before. If you take a frog and you place it into a pot of just nice lukewarm water, that frog will swim around, and it'll keep swimming and swimming until that water is boiling, and then it dies. Now the frog has enough sense that if you dropped it into a pot of boiling water, it would immediately leap out. But because the rise was so gradual, because the rise was so small and incremental, it got used to the ever-rising temperature of the water.